I don't know how many of you are from Canada, but obtaining a license in Canada is different than the United States. And I live in Ontario, and it's not new anymore, but there's a 3-step tier list of getting your license. So you get your learners, or your G1 it's called, and that's basically you go to the DMV or you go to the driver training center, whatever you call, from whichever land you hail from. Here it's called the driver training center, I think, and you do a written test. Easy peasy, you write the test, you pass, and now you can drive on the roads. You just can't go on expressways or highways. You have to stay to inner city and country roads. And then the next level after 12 months is you get your G2, and that you have to do a test, on-road test, where you go through and you do like a parallel park, and you have an instructor there, and you do a couple things, relatively easy peasy. Get your G2, and you can basically do everything that a full license can do, but you basically have your full license. And then after another year, you can go and get your full G license, which is just another road test, and then they take you on the highway or expressway, and you do some more like things specifically pertaining to that, and if you do good, then you get your full license. A little bit convoluted, and all of the extra testing makes it higher potential to fail, and that leads into what I'm going to tell you now. Is I failed many times. I failed my G2 test once, I think, and what happened, and it was my fault, but was also partially due to lack of clarification from the instructor. It was a rainy day, awfulness. So it was like a bright sunny day leading up to the time that I was going to go do my test. So right when my dad's dropping me off to do this test, it starts piss hailing, awful rain cloudness. And I remember I got in the car, I'm super nervous. I get all sweaty and clammy, like awful. And the guy looked very tired. He was kind of short, so he had like short guy anger, which, I know that because I'm short and I can be pretty angry sometimes. So I was nervous, but not angry yet. He got in the car and he's like, okay, don't put this blinker on, do this. And he's walking around, and I can tell he's not in a good mood. And that made me more uncomfortable and nervous. And then we go, and again, my wipers are at full now. I've just pulled out of the spot. I'm fighting the elements. And where this driver training center is it's right on this corner, and in the same plaza, there's like a grocery store and a convenience store and like a pizza place. It's like prime time of the day, like 4:00 in the afternoon, I think, and it's super busy and it's raining and bad. When you pull out of the parking lot, it's a huge intersection with a big light, and just down the street is like a main street, basically an expressway. Like, it's not good times for people that aren't confident in their driving. And I pull out of the parking lot and I stay in that same lane that I pulled out, so the rightmost lane, and I pull up to the green light, and I realize, because there had been construction going on for the longest time, because if you're from Canada, if you're from Ontario, construction starts in the winter and keeps on going until the next winter. It never ends. Rightmost lane was all torn up, so I'm kind of hugging the pylon as I get over, almost in the lane beside me, and I didn't realize that this lane was a right turn only lane. I was told to go straight. And I'm, nervous, and I'm a kid, and he's like, you gotta go straight. So in my mind, I'm like, I gotta go straight. Locked in, we are going straight. I know where the gas pedal is. But legally speaking, and test regarding rule-wise, I have to turn right in that lane. It's a right turn only lane, because if I were to just go straight without any adjustments, I'm going into a ditch or into the apartment building that is along the road after the light. But my panicked, I gotta pass this freaking test, and it's hailing attitude was the second it turns green, gun it a little, just enough, safely that you can get in front of the person beside you and get over. Perfectly legal. No one's gonna be upset about that. Focus. I did exactly that, and the moment I began to accelerate semi-aggressively, the man went, "What are you doing? No! Why you cut off there?" It had already been done. I had already achieved exactly what I envisioned in my mind was going to happen. It went relatively smooth. If there was no driving instructor in the car and I did that, sure, I'd be a jerk because I would have cut off this guy. But I handled that as professionally as one could do so. I was genuinely impressed as I was doing it, though I was being yelled at, so I was also very scared. I'm like, "I'm sorry, I didn't know what to do. Like, you said go straight, so like I had to." And he's like, "You could have just went right." Like, and I was like, "Well, why didn't you? I didn't know. You didn't tell me that. Like, you could have just said to go right, and we'll reapproach, like turn around and come back and follow the route, but take a little detour." And he's like, "Well, you never asked me that." I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I'm small." So anyway, I went with the rest of the test, and like he was mad at me then, but then we went through and I did the parallel park and I did everything else, a 3-point turn, blah blah blah, and he's like, "Oh, it's great," and but like the second, and this is like a 15-20 minute test. It's not that long, but it's long enough for you to kind of forget with what happened at the start of the test. And I roll up to the DMV thinking like, all things speaking, it went pretty well. It started off rough, but it ended great time, right? And I pull in and he's like, "Unfortunately, you failed. You failed the second you left the parking lot because you did that little thing at the light." I'm like, "What?" And I went from a high to a super low. And I was like, why didn't you tell me that when, like, right when I did it?" He's like, "Well, obviously, like, you want to go through the test, right? It's good for experience," or blah, 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 blah. I was like, "But you didn't, like," I was here thinking that, I just lost a couple points. I lost all the points I could lose, and now I'm relatively well within all goodness. And he's like, "No, you can't do that. That was really bad. That was awful, actually. That was horrendous." But he didn't say it like I'm saying it now, like lightheartedly and jokingly, for a learner to learn. He said it harshly and meanly, and immediately left the car and left me in my sadness and I was let down tremendously in that moment. And the rain and hail never stopped. It was continually bad. So now I'm sitting here sad, and inside there's a reigning sadness as well, depression, and just a cliff fall of stress into disarray. And then my dad's like, "How'd it go?" "Awful. I failed it bad." And he's like, "Oh." And then like what was going on is immediately after I was meant to do my test, my parents were taking me to do another thing that I was dreading before as well. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I was like, I am not prepared emotionally or mentally to go to whatever this next thing was. And it was a church thing. And I was like, I am not at a spiritually sensitive point in my life currently. I would dread that and bring the vibe down if I went to a church activity at this time. Needless to say, I did go and it ended up being okay, but I was very, very sad. And I failed, and it costs money to do these tests. I know I don't have money as a kid, so it costed money that I didn't have. And then I began the increasing levels of fear in regards to driving tests. Just the test. Otherwise, like if I'm just chilling in my car, I'm totally fine. I'm chilling, one hand steering, safe. But you're driving like it's part of your life, because I drive every freaking day. And at that point, I drove a good amount. But testing wise, anxiety, terrible time. I'm sure many of you have had similar experiences in regards to tests or driving tests in particular. But that was awful. An awful time, awful day. Really bad awful.